Greetings! It is I, Tempest Naravan Dracovin, your Lord and Emperor here at the Dracovin Empire, and welcome. If you're catching me live on Twitch, hey! Hi, Twitch. If you're catching this later on YouTube, hi, YouTube. Remember, you can interact either way. Just in the YouTube side, just give me a comment down below. I'll talk about it. If you're here on Twitch, just say hi. Something in the corner here, too. Worm usually hangs out. But anyway, we're talking about Starfinder Day. I haven't talked about Starfinder. I've talked about Pathfinder 1st Edition, Pathfinder 2nd Edition, and it's one of those things that Starfinder is an important one to talk about, because Starfinder finds itself right in the middle between these two editions. When I talk about Starfinder, it feels a lot like Pathfinder 1st Edition, but a lot of little things here and there are stuff that happens in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. It's an evolution of these three systems together that almost Starfinder, if it wasn't a completely different setting, well, not, I shouldn't say completely different, a very different setting, but feels kind of similar, it would be vastly different. But why don't we dive into it? Because today I'm going through a big chunk of the book here, and I'm hoping that going through this amount of the book here will certainly be enough for you to learn how to play Starfinder. So let's just talk about a little bit of basic concepts, because guess what? If you've played any D20 system, it's another D20 system. You have your sets of die. D20 is the most important, but you're going to have D4s, D6s, D8s, D12s, sometimes D100s, which can be done with 2D10s. There will be plenty of abbreviations that you'll have to learn the different things. Things like hit points, which is HP, stamina points, which is SP, which is a different thing we'll talk about. Resolve points, which is RP, we'll have to learn about. AC, armor class, that's a basic one. Your attack rolls, your checks, combats, creatures, XP, game master, all the basic different things that happen in a lot of role-playing games, and especially the D20 systems, D&Ds, your Pathfinders. We've learned it, we love it, we know it. If you haven't been around for it, welcome. You're learning a bit now with all these abbreviations. I'll try to go over some of the basics as best I can without kind of making it too much of a monotony for those people that are familiar with these things. The basic idea is you roll a D20 die, you add some numbers based on your character sheet, something happens. Then, if whatever you've done calls for a different roll, it'll tell you what dice you have to roll. Whether it's dice for damage, dice for ability, etc., etc., it will mention the dice you have to do. You interact with monsters, you play in encounters, you have NPCs, non-player characters to assist you. You're a PC, a player character. This combat takes place in rounds. There's DC's difficulty classes, which are target numbers to reach with your checks. And here you go. Those are kind of the basics. And occasionally then you have saving throws and, of course, tier, the scaling of it. Now, where this comes into difference is in play. This is all basic concepts. We're not diving into basic concepts too much today. Now there's role-playing, exploring, and of course tactical combat, which happens in a lot of role-playing games. But in Starfinder, you also have starship combat. Now, starship combat, I can show off just a little bit here. I'm not going to dive deep into this, but this is our starship sheet. What the hell does this all mean? We're not talking about the starship combat today. We are only introducing the concept of it, because your team of characters most likely will have a starship. Now, starship combat is technically, as I go to the character sheet here, starship combat is technically optional. Not every Starfinder game will have starship combat. Not every Starfinder game will require a starship. But a lot of times a team of characters will have a starship, they will own it, or they will be crew members on said starship, one or the other, and starship things will happen. That is a big part of Starfinder. It is not a requirement. Generally speaking, the role-playing aspects, playing as your characters in a way, the exploring, going to various places, finding out different things, you know, whether it's you're on a starship, space station, a broken starship, a faraway planet, an asteroid, you're exploring there, and tactical combat, you and your team versus a team of enemies, whether they're people, aliens, strange creatures, things from another universe, There you go. So, when making my character over here, what are the basic steps that the game suggests I do? Well, of course, we start with a concept. This is a big thing in a lot of character creation for most RPGs. You come up with an idea. Your idea just is like, I'm a Han Solo type, you know, rogue type character with a heart of gold. Or it could be, you know, I'm an engineer who tinkers around with devices and likes to occasionally build robots. I'm a person with psychic powers, which manipulates the minds of others. Or because it is basically based on a Pathfinder D&D type world, I'm a magic user in space. Because those are things, and we'll talk about those. Those are indeed things to consider with there. You know, options. But you come up with the basic idea, and then you choose your race or species. Race is the old term about it, but this is the point in time where we are beginning to get a split, because they specifically say, yes, they still call it race. It's the one that people were familiar with. Again, Starfinder, it's a little bit of an older system at this point in time. It came in between Pathfinder 1st edition, 2nd edition, and the idea of walking away from this term now, because it's not as good of a term, is something. So they say race or species, because it means that's the way you're supposed to inspire. It's your species. I'll kind of return to the species here, even though they say in the book race, because they do give that distinction that it is that kind of terminology here and how it's supposed to be used. Choosing that grants you a number of things. Abilities for that species, languages, hit points, which is very Pathfinder 2nd edition. If you missed my stuff talking about that, that is something that is there, and some ability scores. Then you choose a theme. What's a theme? Well, it's like a background. The background that you have in D&D 5e, the background that you have in Pathfinder 2nd edition, it's kind of like a core aspect of your job, what you took about. It gives you a number of abilities, it levels up your theme, and also gives you ability score bonuses. I'll talk about themes too. And then you also choose a class. Again, you're not finalizing your ability scores, but class gives you like a primary ability score that you're going to want to focus on. It tells you how you attack, how you use abilities. It garners a lot of the rest of your character. Then you finalize your ability scores, now that you have them. You apply anything else that you have from your classes. Your class tells you how many skill ranks you have. We take care of skill ranks. You choose an initial feat, unless you're a human, which you get a bonus one. You buy equipment, that's the step 8, which is worth 1,000 credits with your armor, weapons, and other supplies. And then you finish up your character with finishing details, which is things like alignment, armor class, which you would calculate based on your equipment and all your other stuff, which there's 2 types of armor class, energy armor class and kinetic armor class. As, of course, seen on the sheet here that I've got. If you haven't seen it over there, there's 2 armor classes under the armor class section there. And you can also see under the health and resolve, you have stamina points, hit points, and resolve points. All your saves to calculate. We will talk about what all of this means. Calculate your attack bonuses, carrying capacity, especially if you're using it, deity if you worship one, any kind of description of a character, a homeworld, which could be a planet, space station, or asteroid. Calculate your initiatives, choose all your languages, choose your resolve points. Now, we're going to talk about the basics of resolve points, because it's important. At first level, you have a number of resolve points equal to 1, plus your ability score modifier for your key ability score for your class. There you go. So now I know how to calculate my resolve points. Remember I mentioned, class has a key ability score. That's how you calculate it. Calculate your saving throws, which are the bases are determined by your class, and then it's your constitution for fortitude, dexterity for reflex, wisdom for will, mention your size, your speed, and then starship, which again, are you a crew of a starship, Morning Worm? Are you sharing ownership of a starship? Whatever rules for it. We aren't diving into starships today, but we are going to be talking basically about it because that's a big thing to mention. So, let's break down some of this information here. Because, again, we have this basic rules set of things, but there are things we have to specifically speak about. Let's talk about one of the major components of it. Now, this is technically not the first thing you're going to be doing, but a major component of it is your ability scores. Again, your race / species, your theme, your class will have an effect on what it means to be an ability score. But what we do is we start with 10 in your 6 ability scores. Similar to D&D, similar to Pathfinder, you have these 6. Strength, Dexterity, Constitution, Intelligence, Wisdom, Charisma. Again, basic overview. Strength, physical ability scores for like lifting, being strong, dexterity, your ability to manipulate things, constitution, health of your body, intelligence, how smart you are, wisdom, your common sense, charisma, a combination of appearance and overall personality, that your ability to be personable. You don't actually have to have a great appearance to be personable, but sometimes it helps. So those are kind of a combination of those things nebulously. Those are the 6 scores that you will have as a character. You start with 10s in all of those. You add or subtract for your species, your race. Whatever it says that you get, you change those. So you might have something lower or higher at that point in time. Your theme gives you a bonus, a +1 to one of these. After that, you have 10 points to spend in the scores. What does that mean? It just means that 1 for 1, I have 10 points to spend in my ability scores, with a maximum of 18 in anything. Meaning if I, because of my species and theme, had, let's say, 13 in something, I can spend 5 of my 10 points to put in 18. If I had a 10 and wanted to put something into up to an 18 because I have bonuses and others, I could spend 8 of it. I could spread out my 10 and give myself some 2s across the board, or 2s to 5 scores, and have 12s and maybe a 10 in something. And, you know, again, ability scores up from species and theme would be applied in there. So there's lots of different ways that I can spend it. But it is a 1 for 1 when you're putting those 10 points in, max of 18. And then you record it. Ability score modifiers are calculated, which again, just for basics for new people, if you are new here, calculating a modifier, it's subtract 10 to what you have, divide it by 2, round it down, is the easy way of figuring it out. There are charts, though, to make it easy. So 10 would be +0. Anyway, there's an optional rule of character flaws. If you want a flaw for your character and want something below a 10, great! It's optional. You don't have to do that. You can choose to do that, but you don't get anything in return. That's the big thing. If you want a flaw for character reasons, that makes it interesting, that makes your character feel unique, and you want to put it in there, great, you don't get anything for it. So only take a character flaw, putting something of below a 10 for whatever reason, and again, your species could have a reason to be below 10, but if it doesn't, and you just want to have something lower, like even if you want to have like a 6 in something, you could have a 4 in something if you wanted to. But again, you don't get anything back for it, so it's just a choice to have that deficiency. And you can do it. There are some quick pick rules, which are very similar to a 5e character creation, where you have a set of numbers, and then you apply them. The 3 sets are focused, split, and versatile. The method itself, it's kind of more focused, and because it's more focused, they do something like they give you a little bit more points for this. They give you, it looks like 13 points, which is kind of weird, as an optional method. I guess it's the idea that the customized points, it's a little bit easier to do that, but I guess you could also put more intent into more of those. That's a kind of a weird thing that they do. But the focus would be 18, 14, 11, 10, 10, 10. Split is 16, 16, 11, 10, 10, 10. And versatile is 14, 14, 14, 11, 10, 10, 10 that you put in ability scores. that's the quick pick. And there's also a rolling method if you wanted to use that. I talked about the basics ability scores, and there sometimes requires ability checks, which you'd only be using the modifiers for that. Now, here's an important aspect of ability scores to mention. In D&D 5e, when you get an ability score up, you put either +1 into 2 scores or +2 to a score. Pathfinder, 1st edition, you put +1 into 1 score when you get an ability score up. Starfinder, at 5th level and every 5 levels of that you get ability score ups. These work exactly like Pathfinder 2nd edition. What does that mean? I choose 4 ability scores, 4 different ability scores, and if I have a 17 or higher in any of those, I put a +1 into them. If I have a 16 or lower, I gain +2 to them. Meaning I'm gaining between 4 and 8 to my ability scores overall at 5th, 10th, 15th, and 20th level. That's a bunch of ability score ups. So that's a big part of Starfinder. Now that's very similar to the Pathfinder 2nd edition way of doing things. That's why I was saying Starfinder's in between 1st and 2nd edition. But that's the kind of thing to keep in your mind. Now let's talk the 3 scores you have. Hit points, stamina points, resolve points. Hit points, your health. You know, it's your serious injury. On the other hand, stamina points are your readiness and your energy. It's basically it recovers quicker, but you have a pool of stamina similar to a pool of hit points. One might be damaged, the other might not be. Alright, and you can replenish stamina by spending a resolve point and spending 10 minutes uninterrupted of rest. Once per day, you can regain some hit points and all of your stamina points with 8 hours of rest. There you go. So, stamina points, I can use some resolve points to recover them. Or with 8 hours of rest, I gain some hit points left and all my stamina points left back. We'll talk about kind of what these 2 things mean a little bit here, but know that your hit points are calculated by your species gives you some hit points, and your class does. Very, very Pathfinder 2nd edition. And whenever you level up, your class gives you a certain amount of hit points. Again, Pathfinder 2nd edition does the same thing. So those are the 2, that's why you calculate your hit points. Stamina points are determined by your class, and then plus your Constitution modifier. Hit points is also... I don't know if hit points actually gets your Constitution modifier. It might not. I think stamina points gets your Constitution modifier. So your class will tell you what your stamina point value is, plus your Constitution modifier, and you... Even if your Constitution is negative, the total amount points gained can never be less than 0. And that's at each level you gain your stamina points. So it would be stamina plus Constitution at each level, determined by your class. So Constitution doesn't apply to hit points here, it applies to stamina. Resolve points. What are these? It's like a grit, a luck kind of skill. That's what your resolve points are. So what you get is you get half of your character level rounded down, but a minimum of 1. So at first level it would be 1. Plus your modifier to your key ability score for your class. Remember that key ability score that I mentioned a couple of times already is going to be very important to your class? Here's where it comes in to be important again. So, at level 1, I'm going to have 1 plus my key ability modifier. If I have an 18 in my key ability score, and that's a +4 modifier, I'll have 5 resolve points at level 1. Again, if you go into negatives because your key ability score is negative or something puts it down, you will already at least have 1 resolve point minimum. That's an important thing here. What are resolve points and how do I get them back? So, first thing is, once per day, when you regain any spent resolve points by spending 8 hours of rest. So that same 8 hours of rest that resets your stamina and heals you a little bit of hit points, gives you back all your resolve points. Alright. Certain class abilities and features allow you to spend and use resolve points. Certain ones require you to have a minimum amount of resolve points in order to do these abilities. It doesn't mean you have to spend them, but it says like, oh, you have to have at least one resolve point in your pool of resolve points to at least do this ability. If your resolve goes below 0, or goes to 0, which you can't go below 0 for resolve points, if you go to 0, you can't do that then. Dying means you lose all your resolve points. So even if you're brought back, you start at 0 then. Yeah. If you lose resolve points due to dying and don't have any remaining, you're dead. That's a thing for injury or death, which we'll talk about. So there's some general uses to resolve points. I talked about how stamina is like an energy, you can damage it. Stamina is sort of like, if I'm punching you, I might take away stamina points rather than health points. That's a good way of describing it. Certain attacks might take attack stamina rather than health. They're two pools that you have. But anyway, resolve points. You can use them to regain stamina points. You know, you can reserve them to stabilize after receiving gravest wounds, or to stay in a fight. Those are the 3 ways. The regain stamina points, if I spend 10 minutes, I can spend a resolve point to get a stamina point back. Keeps me in the fight, you know. Keeps it when things are attacking my stamina, keeps my stamina up. Stabilizing. If I'm dying, basically I've reached a point in time where my body's falling apart, and I have enough resolve points, I can spend a number of resolve points equal to a quarter of my maximum. Minimum of 1, maximum of 3. To, on your turn, immediately stabilize. Okay, again, they do say min 1, max of 3. But it has to be at least a quarter of your maximum resolve points. Meaning that at low levels, that quarter might be 1. But at high levels, that quarter might be more than 3. It'll be at least 3. Because remember, resolve points are half your level plus key ability score modifier. So if I'm level 20, I'll have 10 plus, let's say, like, my ability is 20, whatever my keyboard was, so that's 15 I'd have. Quarter of 15 is actually 3. But I guess you could have a 16 and have a 4, so maximum would still be 3. If I have a 6 key ability score modifier, I can see getting to that at 20th level. I can see doing that. It can be possible. So that 16 could exist. Your quarter would be 4. No. Max is 3. Anyway, you can immediately stabilize. You're no longer dying. You're still unconscious. But if you don't have that at least 3 points remaining when you are dying, you lose resolve points as per the dying rule. There you go. Anyway, if you're stable and have enough resolve points, or if you're knocked unconscious from non-lethal damage, you can spend 1 resolve point at the start of your turn to heal 1 hit points. You are no longer dying, and immediately become conscious, and can take your turn as normal. You can spend resolve points to regain hit points only if you are at 0 hit points and are stable, and you cannot heal more than 1 hit point in this way. There you go. Again, when I talk about probably some rules on a different episode, this will mean a little bit more, but just know that the 3 things you can use for resolve points are regaining some stamina, stabilizing if you're dying, or if you are stable but knocked out or unconscious or anything, and you have some resolve points, get yourself back into the fight. Alignments exist. I've talked about those alignments before, the 9 alignments, but, you know, they still exist in this. You can look into them. When you level up, you get your ability score points, you get feats. You get a feat at every odd level, including first level. You get theme benefits. I'll talk about those in a second. And you get more skill points based on your class. Skill ranks, based on your class as you go up. Any new class features you get. There are rules for multi-classing, so if you want to look at that. When you level, you also get options for retraining to go back and change some things that were there. There's rules for that. We won't talk about that today. Let's talk about themes, though. So, there are 10 themes introduced in this book. I'm not going to go deep into them, but the themes are Ace Pilot, Bounty Hunter, Icon, which is kind of celebrity, Mercenary, Outlaw, Priest, of the devotion to philosophy or religion, just to specify these. Scholar, Spacefarer, you lived among the stars, Xenoseeker, you explore alien places, and a Themeless. Themeless is the only one I'm going to kind of go over to give you an idea. Because, basically, if you're being a themeless character, one of those other themes doesn't apply, you still get some stuff. You gain a class skill of your choice that you when you create your theme character, and you get an ability adjustment to +1 to 1 ability score. The class skill, I'll talk about skills, but you gain one of them that is as a class skill. Basically, you add an extra class skill of your choice. And then you get the +1 to ability score of your choice. So Themeless does have a bonus. Then at 6th, 12th, and 18th level, you get some things. The 6th level one is once per day when you roll a skill, gain +2 bonus to that skill for that check. 12th level, choose a skill that's a class skill for you. Once per day, you can re-roll a check for that one before learning the result of your roll, and you have to take the second check even if it's worse. So I roll my d20. Oh, I rolled a 15. I probably don't want to use my extensive studies. That's what that's called. Certainty was the one before there. General knowledge is your first level one. But if I rolled, let's say, a 4, I might want to re-roll it. If I get a 2, I'd have to keep the 2. And Steely Determination is your 18th one. Your resolve points go up by 1. So you get a bonus resolve point. Again, hey, that might get you to that 16. After that, all of these, again, give you a 1st, 6th, 12th, 18th level ability and a +1 to an ability score dependent on your theme. Again, the Themeless is a basic. You get some stuff for it. All the other ones give you some bonuses. I'm not going to go into depth of them. And I'm sure there could be other themes that were introduced in other books. So there might be more than just the 10 basic there. Same can be said for race/species. There are 7 introduced in this book. Androids, humans, Kasathas, Lashtutas, Shirians, Vesk, and Yosoki. Androids are artificial creatures with both biological and mechanical elements. Humans are human. Oh yeah, big thing about Starfinder is Galarian has disappeared. The entire planet just poof, vanished. Something happened. This is the far future of the Galarian we know from Pathfinder. So somewhere in the future, planet disappears. Humans are still around. They're from that homeworld. Cathachis are a 4-armed race from a distant star system. Lysustans are a naturally psychic race with 2 sub-races. Shirians are once part of a terrifying hive mind that devoured anything in its path, but basically have broken from the hive mind and become independent. They're still communally driven. Vesk is a very reptilian race devoted to conquest and dominance, but ended their war with the other races of the Pack Worlds. There's still some distrust there. The Yosoki are kind of rat-like creatures that are experts, passionate and scrappy, and love technology. Those are the species there. Each species gives you a language, of course, and there are other languages. There's prevalent ones and other languages, some of which are familiar to those that are from the Pathfinder worlds and the Galarian worlds, and the very fantasy D&D ones. But there's also a bunch of ones introduced. Remember, this is the far future of a fantasy world Galarian. Of course, the planet disappeared. Then you get vital statistics, the basic average height, average weight, age of maturity, and maximum age for your species. Then they give you ability score adjustments, hit points, species traits / race traits, and then some basic ideas for playing it. Yep. That's all you get there. The basic ideas gives you some idea of society, alignment, relationships with other species, adventurers, names, homeworld and stuff like that, and a physical description. All these apply to all of these species. And there are more species than this that have been introduced in other books. I'll probably have to do a species guide for Starfinder eventually too, just like I've been doing for Pathfinder and stuff. Classes. Let's go a little bit over these too. There are 7 classes introduced in this book here. Envoy, Mechanic, Mystic, Operative, Solarian, Soldier, Technomancer. Very different ones than what you would have in fantasy ones. Envoy is kind of like a little bit of a rogue, a little bit of a bard. They've got personal magnetism and intelligence to help their allies baffle their enemies. They're good on negotiations and politics. Mechanics build, modify machinery, and either have a advanced artificial intelligence with them or a cutting-edge robot as a companion. Mystic channels magical energies, focusing either on the divine or an intuit understanding of biological systems. Operatives use their skill to kind of complete any mission. Their stealth, their discretion, their kind of espionage. They kind of deal with wet work. Again, none of these classes fit in one kind of way. Like Envoy is very roguey-bardy, but Operative's also rogue, but also kind of assassiny, but also kind of fightery. Solarian contemplates and gains powers through the lifestyle called stars. Techniques allow him to create weapons, a suit of armor from motes of solar energy. Soldiers, weapons of war. Wreak havoc when forces call them it. Specialized particular fighting styles. Technomancers understand the connections between technology and magic and exploit them to bend reality and suits their needs. There you go. What do I get for these classes? Well, they give you an overview. You get stamina points and hit points. All the classes have a key ability score. Sorry there? Mm-hmm. That's an important thing. A lot of your things like DCs that you have to resist stuff, kind of certain attacks and stuff, will be based on the key ability score. If you have a class DC that someone will make a saving throw against your class features, it's 10 plus half your level, plus your key ability score modifier. Class skills are defined by your class. What do we mean by class skills? Well, the skills you gain are based on your class. It'll be one rank per... You can have a maximum ranks in your skills equal to one rank per your level. You gain skills equal to what your class has plus your intelligence modifier at each level. And any class skills that you put a rank into, if it is a class skill, you get +3 bonus. If it's a skill that's not a class skill, you just get the straight up whatever the skill would define. It's just you get an extra +3 for class skills. And a class will tell you their class skills. I'll talk about more of that in a minute. Armor proficiencies and weapon proficiencies and specializations are mentioned for your class. Class features are given. What are these? These are all the special abilities you get for your class. There's always going to be a table for your class, which will tell you at each level what your base attack is, what your fort bonus, reflex bonus, save bonus will be for that class, any kind of class features, any kind of spells per day, any other kind of entries that might be important for your class. Classes will also give examples of builds, an appropriate theme for that build, what ability scores you should have, class choices, spells, feats, skills. Basically, you can take a look at example versions of each of these classes. That's something that is in here that's very important to check out. Just as a base example, the Envoy, with their various abilities, which defines under the Envoy. Again, that'll have to be a guide for another day. But their example builds are Ambassador, Military Officer, Negotiator, and Scoundrel, where they tell a theme for them. They give an example of kind of where ability scores are go, what kind of things to choose for it, feats to take, skills to take, and you can use that to help build an idea of these types of characters, and they do that for all the classes. So this is a good way that you can not only get an example of what it means to play these classes, but get an example of like things to choose for doing certain ideas. And as I said, I've given an idea about what these classes are. These are the ones in the base book. There are more out there. Starfinder's been out for a while. They've introduced more species, more themes, more classes. There are more options to dive deeper into things. But these are the base ones in the base book, and honestly, they are the ones you'd probably start with. Go to your GM for approval for anything outside of it. It's kind of the same way I do with Pathfinder. Certainly, I always allow things that are in the core rulebook. I'm oftentimes Advanced Player's Guide, which are the first 2 books that came out. But anything beyond that, normally I'm very allowing of it. But I would like for people to check in with me and ask me about if something's appropriate for a game. Similar to Pathfinder 1st Edition, there are archetypes. I've talked about archetypes with my old Pathfinder 1st Edition things, but what they are basically versions of classes that have alternate class features. When I choose a level of a class, I can choose to have a version of it that's an archetype. But that archetype is what I'm choosing there. Effectively, you're taking that class and having the alternates, and it has alternate class features. They talk about archetypes here and give some examples of one, and where they would alter it. They are a little generic in some of their archetypes, so you can check it out. It's something to look into. For the archetypes here, they talk about when they would be replaced for the various classes, at what levels they would replace things, and they're giving archetypes that are for all classes, basically, here. So, archetypes are an option to look into also. That's something I'll have to go into more detail about, too. But it's a thing to think about. Skill basics. So again, let's just go over the basics of skills, because you're choosing them. I remember I talked about when we first started the list of when and where I choose skills and stuff. But for your character, whatever class it is, per level, you gain a number of skill ranks equal to blank plus your intelligence modifier. Envoys 8, Mechanics 4, Mystics 6, Operatives 8, Solarians 4, Soldiers 4, Technomancers 4, plus intelligence modifier, ranks per level. So level 2, I have that twice. My maximum of ranks is equal to my level, and I can spend it on any skill from the skill list, but if it's a class skill, either granted to me by my class or from something else, let's say like the Themeless, remember, gets to choose a class skill, then you would get an extra 3 to any of those. All the other ones, it's just you would roll your ranks plus your ability score modifier plus any other specialty modifiers you have from feats, items, your species/race, from spells affecting you, from any circumstances. Miscellaneous stuff applies, ability score applies, ranks applies, and again, 3 if it's a class skill and you're trained in it, meaning you have to at least have one rank to get a class skill bonus in a class skill. If I choose not to take a class skill, I don't get that plus 3. I have to at least have invested in a class skill to get the bonus to it. What skills exist here? Well, acrobatics, athletics, bluff, computers, culture, diplomacy, disguise, engineering, intimidate, life science, medicine, mysticism, perception, physical science, piloting, profession, sense motive, sleight of hand, stealth, survival. Not a huge amount of skills, but a wide variety of them. Now maybe, another guide I have, I'll dive deeper into what a lot of these skills do and what kind of things you'll do with them. I've done skill guides before, but that's the basic idea of the various different skills that you would use. There are some extra rules to talk about. Things like recalling knowledge, aiding, taking 10, taking 20s, skills that can affect starship and starship combat. That does come up. And various uses for all of these skills to talk about. We're not going to go over that today. Again, I'm trying to keep today a little simple. That you're here for just basic idea of the character creation. You can look into all these skills. I'll do guides on them in the future. That'll be much more of my, I'll do some Starfinder stuff. Feats. There are general feats. There are combat feats. Generals are just anything can take it. Combat are feats that can be used in combat. Soldiers get bonus combat feats in particular. Feats are going to be very much more like Pathfinder 1st Edition for the feats. Yes, I get them from leveling up. Yes, soldiers get bonus ones. Some other classes might get bonus ones. Humans get a bonus one too. There can be feats which are basically species-based / race-based. Feats will give names. They'll have prerequisites, which are ability scores, other feats you might need, a minimum base attack, ranks in a skill, anything else. Basically what I need to take it. They'll give benefits. They'll also mention what it normally would be if it's replacing something in the rules, and anything special about the feats. There are a wide list of feats to choose from, some of which are familiar if you paid Pathfinder 1st Edition, some of which are unique on their own. And I would recommend, if you are playing this and you have some familiarity with Pathfinder 1st Edition, you're going to have a good time trying to check it out. But certainly read through it. If you're familiar with Pathfinder 2nd Edition, well, and then also 5th Edition D&D, it's a very different kind of skill feats. Pathfinder 1st Edition, it's a very similar list to that there. And you can kind of check out and understand the feats from that. Last thing I want to talk about today, because I don't want to get too crazy and everything today, is equipment. You start with 1,000 credits. Now that's kind of a universal money for the pack worlds. You'll have a cred stick. You can sell stuff. It's going to work a lot of times like it does in a lot of things. The thing here is, unlike a lot of times Pathfinder or D&D where you're selling things for like half cost, in this one you're generally speaking, you can sell equipment for like 10% of its listed price. That's pretty low. But market conditions can change that, you know. There isn't a lot of resale value in basic equipment. Trade goods on the other hand, 100% still. Now, very similar to Pathfinder 2nd Edition, there's bulk and light items. Bulk represents how much you can hold. You can carry an amount of bulk equal to half of your strength score without difficulty. If I have a strength of 10, I can hold a bulk of 5. If I have a strength of 18, bulk of 9. Items will have a bulk value. They also might have a dash, meaning it doesn't weigh anything, or it will have a light, an L value. Every 10 light items is 1 bulk. Very Pathfinder 2nd Edition. If you're over your bulk limit, you get a maximum dex to your AC of 2, -5 to strength and dex-based checks. You can be overburdened with even be higher than that. You estimate bulk sometimes. Items have levels. That's very Pathfinder 2nd Edition. And there is both magic and technology out there. Guess what? It's a magic technical future. You're in the distant spacefaring future where magic was still around. It developed and, you gained technology too. So, yeah. You can hold a weapon. You can wield a weapon. Those are two different things. Weapons can have sizes. Guess what? There are a lot of zappy, blasty weapons. Ammunition is going to be important things. There's cartridges, charges, and missiles are 3 different types of things. Cartridges might be things that you shoot things out. Various projectile weapons will have cartridges that hold a number of shots in them. Charges would be charges for energy or some kind of projectile energy-based weapons, basically battery charges. Missiles explode. Enough said. Oftentimes you'll target AC. There's different types of weapon damage. Energy damages. Acid, cold, electric, fire, sonic. There's also kinetic damages. Bludgeoning, piercing, slashing. They do specify these differently. Remember, you have 2 ACs. It's been on the screen here the entire time with your character sheet. Energy armor class, kinetic armor class. You do have 2 different ones. And depending on what your weapon does, some weapons can also deal multiple types of damage. It could be bludgeoning and electric. There are rules for that. Weapons can be magically altered. Weapon fusions can happen. And it targets either EAC or KAC. A base weapon will define which it targets, not depending on... So, if I'm a kinetic-based attack and magically I change it to do energy-based damage, it would still target the kinetic-based thing. So it's sort of like what the weapon targets, no matter how I change it or alter it, it just hits that. There are rules for if it targets one or the other. That's something to talk about. Weapons have types. There is rules for basic melee, advanced melee, small arms, long arms, heavy weapons, sniper weapons, special ammunition and weapons, Solarian weapon crystals. We talked about Solarians briefly. So, yeah. There is level to weapons. We did talk about that too. Remember, I did mention that. Item level represents a little bit of what level you should be to it. It also represents scarcity and value because of its technological and magical construction. The higher level, the more valuable it is, the harder it is to create. It determines hardness and hit points based on its level. You know, again, it's a little bit like Pathfinder's 2nd edition, that if a weapon's level doesn't necessarily match with the level of your players. In Pathfinder 2nd edition, if a weapon has a level, it's sort of saying like, oh, you should be of this level to use it. You know, it doesn't mean you have to be. You can be higher level. It could be lower level. You know, higher level weapons can unbalance things. In this case, it's kind of similar. It conveys that, you know, if it's a higher level, it's something harder to get. It's something rarer to get, and it should be harder to get it. It's kind of assumed that with the basic concepts, you really shouldn't find something in a typical settlement equal to your character level +1. In a major settlement, character level +2. And higher level stuff should be more difficult to purchase or to gain. Might be even more expensive than it would normally be. So that's kind of a basic idea on that. That's how it works there. So weapons will have level, price, damage, range if it's a ranged weapon, a critical, capacity again if it holds things, usage, which tells you how much ammo is consumed with each attack. That's another thing that's important to say, because capacity versus usage are two different things. Bulk, because capacity also could be if something is usable in multiple weapons, that's when usage comes in hand. You know, I have a battery I can put in two different guns. One gun, it shoots one shot per use of battery. The other might be 2 shots per use of battery, or 2 uses of battery per shot. Bulk and anything special about it, because there are special abilities to all of these. There are plenty of melee weapons, both basic and advanced. A huge list of them, both one-handed, two-handed, flame, plasma, shicks, sonic weapons, uncategorized weapons, cryo weapons, which are cold-based damage, are a thing. Small arms again, cryo, flame, laser, plasma, projectile, shinks, sonic, shock. I'm sorry, shock, sonic, uncategorized. They have pictures of a lot of these weapons in the book if you want to take a look at a bunch of them. The long arms, the heavy weapons, the sniper weapons, grenades, special weapons, ammunition, Solarian weapons, a lot of weapon special abilities. Again, I'm not going to necessarily go into depth about this entire thing today, but it's one of those things. It's the distant future. You have space weapons. Enjoy. You want a laser gun? Great. You want a cryo gun? Great. You want a sonic gun? Also great. You want a flame gun? Good. You want a flame sword? Cool. There are special materials similar to other systems with adamantine alloys, cold iron, silvers. There are weapon fusions, what they talk about. That's something to look into. So, yeah. Armor. Armor has level 2. Well, I should give an example of, like, level for a weapon. That's probably a good thing. I forgot to do that. I have to go back to a level. Like, a incendiary, like a frag grenade, there's a level 1 frag grenade. There's also a frag grenade 2, which is a level 6 weapon. The basic sniper rifle is level 2. So certainly a level 1 character could have it, but there's a 20th level sniper rifle. So you can see different categories of weapons that way. Armor. Armor has level, a price, its energy armor class bonus, its kinetic armor class bonus, max dex bonus, armor check penalty, speed adjustments.
Yeah, I don't know where that is. I'm not running it.
Upgrade slots. You can don armor. Armor has sizes, environmental protections sometime.
I'm sorry, what?
Which can be an important thing.
No dishwasher either, as far as I know.
Anyway, I have enough people talking loudly in the hall. You can go into space or hostile places. Armors can have environmental protections. That can be an important thing, a part of your armor. And that can be something that's listed at it. So, certainly something like a Extus suit exists. And all the various suits and armors and how much defenses they give and how much level they are, which goes up a lot, and basically how much protection it is. You certainly can look into light armors, heavy armors, and they go up to having things from levels, low levels to up to 20th level. So certainly, that's a good thing about these things, because it's various levels of technology. Certainly I can have magical items. I can just have technological items based on level. And armors give their special descriptions too. There are them power armors or armored upgrades. Armors can have upgrade slots. So you can have force fields are a thing. Augmentations with cybernetics. These exist. Various types of computers you can purchase and various modules for that computer. Security systems. Other kind of technological items exist. Things like comm units, medical assistants. These are all things you can buy. You can also still get magic items. Rings of resistance exist and have levels. Aeon stones. Spell ampules and gems and stuff like that. Serums. Serums will take the place of potions. Generalized items. Staffs. Tiaras. Rods. Hybrid items that are a bit of technology and magic exist, which certainly you can purchase some stuff too. Vehicles exist. Vehicles that exist from lower level vehicles or even spacecraft. And other just basically items that you can get into. Personal items, things like, of course, general gear, trade goods, drugs, medicinal things. Hey, remember, we're in a far future. There's medical stuff you can get. Not just science, you can also get not just magic, which it was a lot in Galarian, food, services, all that kind of stuff you can look into, and all the basic equipment. That's about it. And again, there have been a lot of books for Starfinder that have come out, and a lot of stuff that's been provided. And let me just check something here. I believe I could go to, because I always suggested the PSFRD D20 for Pathfinder First Edition. But it also the Archives of Nethys, which I suggest for Pathfinder Second Edition, I think does do Pathfinder First Edition and Second Edition. But I like the other one better for that one. But I think you can do. Let me just check here. You can do Starfinder for Archives of Nethys. So if you want to take a look at all the different classes, which they do have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 different classes here. A lot more themes. And there might be more stuff online for them. It's the aliens. What you can play? No, that's creatures you can fight. Ah, there it is. And they've got the core legacy species, other species. They've got a hell of a lot of a list here. I'm going to tell you, there's a lot you can play. So there's options. Surprisingly, not as many classes as I would think. When I went into classes, there's a lot less than I thought there was. But the Archives of Nethys is a great place to go there. So, yeah. And again, as I said, these are just locations you can go to find out this information here. And
I never had so many compliments about the way my skin looks. It's really nice to see that I could get great help.
thank you for playing an ad as soon as I went to that page, very loudly. This is the first time the D20 PSFRD did that. But thanks. I mean, you've always been quiet up until now, and decided that this time I'm not going to shut up. There is a StarjammerSRD.com too, which I don't seem to be very good. Because the thing is, I'm trying to look online for sources. I think the Archives of Nethys's Starfinder section looks to be the best one that they have, unfortunately. It happens. Like the Pathfinder, the PSFRD D20 SRD is technically the best one there. I mean, the Pathfinder 2nd Edition SRD is getting better, but... Anyway. So yeah. That's the basics now of that. Again, I'll probably go into some of these things in more depth as we go on. And honestly, I'll do more Starfinders. I do like doing Pathfinder 2nd Edition stuff, but I'll do more of the Starfinder stuff interspaced every couple of weeks or something, or, something where I'll go over more theme guides and species/race guides, class guides, dive deeper into things like the skills, equipment, the rules, starships, magic, game mastering, a lot of the stuff that, it is very similar to Pathfinder 1st Edition. That's the thing is, there are a lot of little tweaks here and there that are very... If you've gotten into Pathfinder 2nd Edition, you will recognize them. But a lot of this is just Pathfinder 1st Edition. And a lot of this stuff on that sheet remains the same. The little changes here and there can be felt and are very different, but certainly a lot of it's very similar. You will be familiar with it if you've either played or gotten into either of those systems. You definitely will have touched upon it. And for a space-going game, certainly, it's not like I can't recommend checking it out. There aren't a huge amount of space-based games out there. There are some that would be this level that have a decent starship combat. I think this is something I've talked about in other places, but for all the starship combats that are out there, Starfinder has one of the best. Starship combat can have some problems. So that's another reason to look into Starfinder. Not that you can't have enjoyable starship combats in other systems, but the way it's built, which I will have to talk about in the future, is one of the best when you're looking for that kind of thing. If you're just looking for an example of some space-based game that's very familiar, if you are familiar with Pathfinder 1st Edition, 2nd Edition, if you're familiar with D&D 5e, again, a lot of the way this works feels similar. 5e is something that takes examples from 4th Edition D&D, from Pathfinder 1st Edition, and builds something of itself. 2nd Edition Pathfinder, if that's what you're familiar with, it's got some blood of Pathfinder 1st Edition in it. If you're really familiar with Pathfinder 1st Edition, you're going to be able to pick up Starfinder like that. I would recommend definitely checking it out as a very different system, but feels familiar. It'll feel like your classic fantasy RPG adventures, but let's go to space. And certainly there's a lot of material that's been put out there already. A lot of adventures that have been published, a lot of adventure paths, similar to Pathfinder always does for Starfinder, and a lot of more books that have been coming out. And more are still coming out. Starfinder is supported, and more will come out in the future too. So if none of these classes, species, themes really fit your bill for what you want to build, more's going to come out. And third-party stuff has been put out there too to look into. Anyway, I don't want to ramble on too much here, just talking about some basics and catching up on what we're done. I hope you at least learned a basic idea how to make a Starfinder character here. Yeah, a lot of basics are here. It makes a lot of sense, and it's got familiarity to it. So, again, I hope you learned. I hope you had an enjoyable day. If you are watching this on Twitch, Great, thank you. Hey, give a follow. If you're also, go check out the YouTube side. Similarly to the YouTube side, hey, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Maybe leave a like, leave a comment. These are great ways to support. Drive up those algorithm stuffs, which is really people have to call out is. Watch me live on Twitch too. Come join me. Come stop by. You get to have some of my unedited mess at the beginning and end of these streams, and honestly, isn't that fun? You can also check out the other things I do. Either way, check out Discord and Twitter for checking up on me. A lot of great ways to see what's going on, some brain farts, scheduling updates and stuff like that. And that's about it. Every Tuesday, Thursday, Fridays, or Tuesday, Thursday, Saturdays, live on Twitch. That's when these come out. A few days, 1 or 2 days afterwards, up on YouTube. Discussing Tabletop every Saturday is another thing I can shout out. And Buccaneers Shackled see the live play I'm currently doing at the time of this, which will be up on YouTube anyway, so if you want to check it out in post, on Wednesdays evenings. So, I've done all my shout-outs. I've said all my things. I'm going to say goodbye to you, YouTube. I'll probably chat with Twitch a little bit after this. But until that time, that you, YouTube, and of course Twitch is, I bid all of you farewell. Until next time.